Well, hello and welcome to my world, folks. This is Cedric LaFleur. I'm your host. I'm excited to be here with you tonight. Welcome to Talk Leadership with Cedric. You know, everybody needs a little TLC, and I'm excited again to be with you for another session of Talk Leadership with Cedric. You know, this is where we focus on leadership, personal growth with business leaders, with educators, and local thought leaders. Our goal is to introduce our audience to leaders who are making an impact with innovative ideas. Our guiding leadership principle is the law of contribution, which says growing yourself enables you to grow others. So you can't give what you don't have. So first you must grow yourself in order to grow others. Now we believe that outstanding leaders like yourself will help us to help others. So tonight, folks, tonight, we have another dynamic leader with us. Now, you know, folks, I come from Abbott Laboratories, and we've had a lot of Abbott people in the studio with us. And tonight we have another dynamic leader retired from Abbott Laboratories with us tonight. So now, you know, every week I like to do a proper introduction of my guest. So let me do a proper introduction of Mr. Jeremy Schubert. Jeremy is a healthcare strategist and business leader. For 27 years, Jeremy has been a leader and passionate student of global healthcare, holding leadership positions across multiple geographies, including Europe, Latin America, Canada, and of course, the United States. Jeremy has been at the forefront of creating concepts and strategies for addressing modern healthcare and leadership challenges. He has authored a number of papers on healthcare ecosystem and the future of healthcare. Jeremy has also developed novel business frameworks to include value-creating innovation and value-creating collaboration. His main passions are future healthcare models, shaping healthcare, high-performance cultures, and servant leadership. And folks, let me tell you what Jeremy knows about high-performing cultures. Jeremy was one of my divisional vice presidents leading a high-performance sales organization. So he knows about high performance. Folks, Jeremy received his bachelor's degree in international marketing from Texas A&M University. Yes, he's an Aggie. That's okay, folks. He also has earned his MBA from the Kellogg School of Management with an emphasis in strategy, marketing, and healthcare economies, and a master's degree in public health from the University of Liverpool in the UK with an emphasis in health system performance improvement, social determinants, and building healthier communities. Now, Jeremy is currently pursuing his doctorate in strategic leadership from Liberty University. Jeremy is a member of the American College of Healthcare Executives and the International Health Economic Association. So let's welcome Mr. Jeremy Schubert to the show.
Awesome. Glad to be here. Thanks for that introduction, Cedric. That's awesome. I wish my mother could hear that.
Well, you know, it's always good to introduce the guests. I love reading their bios, and as I get to learn a little bit more about them at the time, and it also helps our audience better understand the caliber of people that we're bringing on the show.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I'm sorry to bend the curve so low, but I will do my best to step up to it as best I can.
So, you know, Jeremy, I read your bio, but our audience like to hear, you know, from you. So tell us a little bit about your leadership journey and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, you know what? I've been really fortunate, Cedric. My entire life, I've been thrown into opportunities where I had the chance to learn leadership. And I want to underscore opportunities because that's all they were, right? Some of them I see, some of them I didn't. You know, by way of understanding, I went to Texas A&M. You can probably gather I grew up in Texas. I actually grew up in a map dot in South Texas. Like literally my town was 1 square mile surrounded by either farms or the ocean or the Gulf of Mexico. There was really not a whole lot of stuff around us, right? So it's a small community. And there's a lot of benefit to that because it was one of those towns where if you could walk, you had to be in the marching band. If you could run, you had to play football and be in the marching band at the same time, right? So you got a chance to really get a diverse set of experiences. So from a very young age, I was doing a bunch of different tasks, participating in a bunch of different events, you know, from athletics to student government, to debate, to being in the one-act play. So all these diversified experience gave me a chance to learn leadership, not only from different perspectives, but applied in different contexts, if you will. So seeing it in a lot of different ways, which is a great opportunity to absorb and to learn. I went to Texas A&M. I was in the military school there. And actually, we don't really refer to it much as a military academy as much as a leadership laboratory. So the whole construct around the core at Texas A&M is around leadership development. And you're offered a host of opportunities to learn leadership, not only in a practical sense from how you do it, but also how you experience it as a follower, both good and bad. And then we got exposed to a number of different leadership theories as a part of that process, in terms of from even starting way back then, from servant leadership and transformational leadership and trait-based leadership. So a host of things we got exposed to. I was fortunate enough coming right out of Texas A&M to go to work for Abbott, and particularly early on in my career, maybe not so much later, but early on in my career, I worked for some of the best leaders that I'd ever come across. Guys who really understood, how do you get to performance? Who really understood how do you think about developing yourself, your team, the organization? Who really understood how to connect. And I got a good chance to see how it was done right. And throughout my life, got a chance to see maybe how it was done wrong. And the leaders that I was working for, fortunately, along the way, kept opening up opportunities for me to test my leadership, not only at a higher level, but again in a different context. Whether that was moving from where we were in medical diagnostics to animal health, from an established business to a startup business, and then internationally, right? What we do and how we think in the context we lead within in the U.S. Going over and now trying to do that in Europe, in Japan, in Australia, looking at, all these different domains and contexts to apply it in, to sharpen and learn and grow. And it was an awesome experience.
Well, that is awesome. And folks, I want you to understand from Jeremy tonight is one, his journey through different, starting off in sales and then moving on to other opportunities. And like he said, taking advantage of opportunities, because they were just opportunities, and you either sink or swim, right? So you had a long executive level career. Help our audience understand, some of the roles that you held and that helped shape your leadership style.
Yeah, I would say that every single position I had gave me something, right? And the main thing that I would have to say from that is actually there's kind of two domains that I always fly off of that. They gave me a chance to make some mistakes, which I made. So I took full advantage of making every mistake that I could possibly make. Up until about 5 minutes before this call, I was still working on some of the, making some mistakes. I'm really good at that. And then taking full advantage of understanding that, that there, being on the lookout for, what you can learn from the people that are around you. And as I went through my career, I would tell you was kind of most interesting for me in terms of development is, again, going back to my childhood. I grew up in a 1 square mile plot of land, and I'm not even joking. It is literally 1 square mile. Well, when you're a kid and you grow up all the way through 18 in that zone, what you believe is that's the world, right? And the culture of that zone, the thinking of that zone, context with what you're in, you believe that this is kind of how everybody thinks. Mm-hmm. The norms there are the norms that translate, and you realize as you move outside that bubble into college and beyond, just how much context matters. And so, I got a chance to really expand as a human being by not only, kind of doing different things and living in different places, but working with different cultures, across the board. And so they're just really cool things you can learn from working in Japan, right? And then, a day later, you're in Australia learning a completely different set of things. Then a day later, you're in Germany learning kind of a completely different set of things because of the context, the environment that people came through. And so, again, and that actually enables you the opportunity to really magnify your mistakes, because what is a successful play in one area may be the completely wrong way of approaching a problem or a situation in another. And so getting the chance to actually not only just go through and make linear, experiences of mistakes and successes and learning from people, but then also seeing how context matters in terms of your leadership, in terms of your strategy, in terms of what you'll play. And it was just a great all-around experience.
Wow, that's awesome. So, of the different careers you had, I'm gonna ask you a couple of things. One, tell us which job was the most fun, which one was the most interesting, and which one was the most challenging?
Yeah, I say from the fun perspective, it was the first time I became a frontline manager when I was what we refer to as a district manager, but it was, I was leading a team of 7 to 9, salespeople. And that was the most fun for me, simply because not only I was with just some of the greatest human beings on the planet that I got to spend all my time with, and we came together as a team to go do something special, and the team did. It was a chance where I really got to get very detailed and integrated into, from a servant leadership perspective, the people that I was working with, and getting down to each of them as an individual and what was important to them. What drove them, how they saw the world, and becoming part of their journey, and kind of being able to learn and practice and get really full value from being integrated with them as humans in their journey, and watching them grow and be successful. And it was the most fun. And sometimes along that domain, people ask me what's your best memory, right? And my best memory is watching, when there were 5 slots to go to President's Club, our top honor, watching 4 of my guys go up and get it, and knowing that the 6th slot, the one just out, was one of my guys as well. So knowing that and seeing them succeed was just so great. From an interesting perspective, I'd have to say, it's when I went over into the veterinary business, changing from a big business and lots of support, lots of sales, to a business that was tiny with no sales, where our strategy was a blank sheet of paper, right? And literally, as much as I love this statement, we were every day was trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, and we should have put that business on good times, man, because that was exactly, we were just every day, and it wasn't like, oh, for the first 6 months it was hard. It was, for 7 years, it was like that. But every day was, some kind of thing that you were facing. There was an opportunity for the business to go under, and us to give up, and an opportunity for us to do something really crazy that may make the difference for our future. And so going through that whole process was just really interesting, because you get confronted. Maybe interesting because along the way, you had a 1,001 reasons you could have stopped and failed, and you could have looked in the mirror and said, well, you know what, no one else could have done this,
right?
But as an organization, as a team, we consistently crossed those thresholds and built a business. From a challenging perspective, I'm gonna leave it maybe at a type of experience that happened towards the end of my career, probably the last 3 jobs, because if you found it's the actual doing of the job, the mechanics, the blocking and tackling of the job, was never a problem, right? It was never like really, really, really challenging. There were complex problems for sure. There were crises for sure, but it was never really that big a deal. The biggest issue, however, was cultural change. And what was interesting is the actual crescendo of all of that for me, and the most challenging, was actually in the U.S., not culture from a standpoint of geographic, nationalistic culture, but culture from a standpoint of a business, a group of people working together. And that was perhaps the most challenging thing to kind of work through, particularly in a company that's as long-standing with the ritualistic and habits and behaviors that are well ingrained in a company that, like, we came from, from Abbott, which serves it well, right? Until you have to change.
Right.
And depending on how hard of a left turn you have to take at Albuquerque, that's where you start to really put stress on the people. Now, that's to say, and I'd be clear, because this as well as I do, the people are fantastic, right? And so this is nothing. This is not a commentary of a step down in quality of individuals or capabilities or anything like that. It's how far you have to bend from the normal rituals of the team, the organization. How far away you're stepping from their beliefs that they've always known. How much are you telling them the earth is not flat to the earth is round, and and how much can they get their head around on that? And so those are having to do that the last 3 or 4 stops in my career. That I have to say has been the most challenging, the most rewarding, but consistently the most challenging thing.
Sure. Yeah. And folks, here's the thing. With larger organizations, it's that big ship, right? It takes a lot more for it to turn and change versus that speedboat, right? Smaller organizations, right? But at the end of the day, here's the way I look at all of these type things. When leaders like Jeremy come in, it's about trying to help people understand how to get out of your comfort zone, right? In order for the organization to go to a higher level, and guys who are watching in the leadership development space, we talk about this comfort zone that happens. People are used to doing it this way because this is the way they've always done it. Sometimes you have to make shifts, and making that shift is up here a lot of times. It's not that the person is not capable or able. It's just a matter of, do they really want to make that shift? Comfort zone is really what is here. So, some people are reluctant, Jeremy, to take lateral positions, right? Mm-hmm. And because sometimes they look at it as a step back. I don't want to do that. I want to keep going forward and all this type of stuff. Yeah. So in your career, did you ever have to take a lateral position? And if so, how did it help you moving forward?
Yeah, I did, and it was the smartest decision that I could have possibly made, and particularly in our organization. Again, I'm a big fan in any way of learning, being consistently learning. And the best way to do that is to put yourself in different circumstances that enable you to see things differently, different businesses, different countries, different products, different domains. And I was a general manager when I was in the veterinary business, and I flipped over to become a general manager, same job, same grade level, same pay, in the diagnostic business. But what was interesting about that is then that's when I changed where I was living from Chicago to just outside of London, right? And it opened up a host of opportunities to learn something different. By the same token, again, I see this all the time, and why this is really important to really think about how you're shifting gears is, if you get, it's kind of funny, and we'll look at it you can look at it from any kind of commercial perspective. I'm sure it translates to other disciplines. If you're successful in one geography over a period of time, because I know some leaders, for example, are really successful in the U.S. for a period of time. They understand how the U.S. market works and the mechanics of it. And then you start to actually have to think about how much of your experience is relational and knowledge based for what you know versus your skill, your competency. And then how much do you start to actually lean on the habits that you have and lose out on the opportunity to learn. And so changing, gears, switching, positions, moving into something completely new really does enable you to kind of reset and open up the doors to maybe take in a bunch more learning than you would have otherwise. So for me, it wasn't when I moved over into the diagnostics, it was actually a step back in complexity. Although everybody told me this is going to be more complex, it was a step back from when I came into. I wasn't worried we were going to shut the doors every Tuesday because of XYZ supply issue. Right? It was stable, right? And it was, right. It was complex, but not any more complex when it came from. But yet the opportunity to learn and grow was tremendous.
Yeah. And I'm glad you walked through that, because a lot of times people struggle with that part of in their career, right? And because everybody's always preaching, move forward, take a step higher, move forward, right? So, so leading during crisis is a critical moment in any organization, right? And from a high level perspective, right? Help us understand when you're leading through crisis. Now we know as the leader, you have to always project, calm, cool, collective, and just, you're collected. Nothing's bothering you, right? But I know inside it's, there are times where you're probably going, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? So how do you handle those moments? And then who do you talk to in those moments of crisis to have that stress reliever, if you will?
Yeah. So the good part for me, that when you ask this question, is that it brings a warm feeling, because this is actually one thing that, again, from upbringing or otherwise, or spending 10 years in the trenches in veterinary medicine, we were crisis every day. So over time, it got to be where you develop a deep breath for it. And that's not to say when crises happen that the air doesn't go out of my lungs, because it does. And as you know, I can weave together a tapestry of profanity like no one else, right? Which also helps me get my head around it. However, right, what I've learned over time is, at the end of the day, regardless whether you have leader on your title or you're whatever point in the organization, standing and watching the fire burn is never going to be an answer. Never going to be. Watching the Titanic sink is not the answer, right? Panic is not the answer. And when you learn those things, you can tell yourself those things really quickly. They quickly get reset when the crisis happens, and say, hey, I got to do, there's really kind of two fundamental things I got to do here, right? One, I got to get to root cause, and I got to figure out how I stop the bleed and put myself in a position where I can gain control.
Right.
From there, I can't waste time crying about what happened and unfairness or, villainize anything. It doesn't really matter. From there, I just have to play the ball from there. If the ball ends up in the sand, not because you hit it there, but because you hit a straight ball and some crow picks it off in the air and goes and takes it 200 yards over and drops it in the sand, you can spend all the day bitching at the crow, right, or you can worry about hitting the next shot, right? And the quicker you move yourself and everybody else in the organization to hitting the next shot, playing the next play, you're going to be in great shape. Now, for me, when you talk about, okay, who do you lean on when these things happen? I mean, dude, you can never beat moms for this, man. You gotta call moms. Moms always know the answer, right? Exactly what you got to play. So for me, because I know at the end of the day that mechanically where I gotta get to. Yeah. And so for me, it's been less about, hey, I got to call somebody who knows about this, who can solve it, more to, hey, I just got to call somebody who can help me get centered. And all I need to know is that, in my case, I'm Mrs. Schubert's youngest. And as Mrs. Schubert's youngest, I know I need to handle the business that Mrs. Schubert's youngest needs to handle. And that's how I lean on it, just to make sure I stay focused, because I'm, confident in myself and the people around me that we're going to find a way to play the ball from where it sits.
Sure. Yeah, I like that. And folks, I want you to understand. I want you to make sure you read between lines. Make sure you pick up what Jeremy is saying. And he said you have to prepare yourself to get back up at bat and kick the ball or hit the ball on to the next level, right? You can't just stay in that panic mode and worry about the building on fire. How we're going to put the fire out, and then how we're going to get into a new building, right? And this is, as a leader, and remember, I tell you all the time, nobody, and Jeremy, you can confirm this or not, nobody has ever put out an ad that says we want the best followers possible, right? Everybody's trying to hire leaders. So as a leader, whether you have a leader on your title or you're an individual contributor, you have to have a leader mindset. Mm-hmm. And leader's mindset is, let's get ready for the next thing and how we're going to go to the next level and handle this issue. So thanks, Jeremy, for that. Yeah. Jeremy, leaders come in all different types of packages with different types of strengths, right? So what are some strengths that you feel are important for successful leaders to have and or display?
Yeah, it's a great question. And let me tell you why, because if you say, okay, what strengths are important? All of them, right? Whichever one is yours, right? Is kind of comes down to, and I tell you that because more over time in the social literature on leadership will support this. Over time, we got really heavy on traits and skills and competencies, and then everybody trying to rate everybody on kind of how those things sit. And all of those things are important components when you start to think about, what is a strength, right? Because it'll come in one of those flavors, and they're all real important. But overwhelmingly, what we know is when someone plays to their strength, whatever that is, right, then they're going to be more productive, more successful, and more effective. And oh, by the way, they're going to be better people to be around, right? Their mood's going to be better, their attitude's going to be better. Yeah. They're going to fear less, and they're going to believe more, right? When they believe they're kind of leaning on their strengths. And so what I would say is you think about this is maybe kind of recontexting it a bit, but understanding that, hey, you have these strengths, right? But the critical domain from the leader is to get change and to get performance. And when you start to think about any one domain of way looking at that, because I come from working from leaders to say, oh, you have to have critical decision-making skills. You have to have critical thinking. You have to have these, all great things. Wouldn't throw a rock at any of them. However, as a leader, my job is to get to this outcome. It's to get the change that's required. It's to get the outcome that we're moving for, to get the business in the right position, to create an environment where people feel good about themselves and what they're doing, they're bought in. And maybe I lean on somebody else's strength to make that happen. Maybe I'm not the critical thinker, but I can lean on somebody who is within my organization to help me. And that's, maybe the way to context it is the biggest strength of the most important strength for a leader is to know their strengths and being able to then leverage the strengths of others, right? When the time is right, versus just a trait, a skill, or a competency.
Sure, I like that. But for the audience, here's what I wrote down based on what you said. Okay. One is I like the last thing you said. You got to know your strengths. Number two, I wrote is the ability to get the change that's required. And then three is the ability to get the outcome that's needed, right? So then now that means that you know your strengths. So then you have people that are going to be able to fill in the gap where where your weaknesses are. So I love that. See, I like to give the audience 1, 2, 3. So that,
there you go.
They can work on those. All right. That's the homework, audience. Good leaders ask great questions, Jeremy, and you were good at asking great questions, especially when it came to understanding our numbers. So,
it's a skill like anything else, man. It's a skill like anything else.
So, what's been some of the best questions? 1 or 2 questions that you've either asked yourself and you thought they were a really good question. So I'm going to ask all my leaders or people on my team this, or someone has asked you that question and you went, man, this is a really great question.
So I give you the one, right? That I think if people can take this home with them, it can make a difference. Because I'm a big fan of servant leadership. And so that central question is, what's personally important to them? Right. So as a leader, as a manager, a frontline manager, I was always asking myself, what's personally important to the person sitting across the desk from me, to my sales rep, to my sales manager, to my sales director. I'm trying to figure that out as best I can for the people that I have the chance to be intimate with. Right. Mm-hmm. And when you've got that one-on-one relationship, that's the central question I think that you have to be asking yourself, because by knowing that, what you're able to do is not only serve them by helping them achieve or get to that what's personal to them, but it also enables you to speak their language when you start to talk about things that have to get done, changes that need to get made, behaviors that need to be in play, actions that we need to take, because now you can start to align those things in a way that fit with what's important to them. And if it doesn't fit, you have to know that. Right, you have to know that, either because that's going to be painful for them, for anyone that has to go down a path that it doesn't fit with what's personally important to them, or if they perceive it to be contradictory, then it's a challenge, and you got to be eyes wide open about that. By the same token, it was kind of funny because as you know, we would do reviews on customers, and every time anyone would bring up, hey, I'm talking to this customer, the very first question I would always ask is, what's personally important to that customer, right? Because again, as a business, we get enamored with our product, our service, what we know, what we're doing, and none of that matters, right? And your product isn't what creates value. Right. It isn't until it's consumed in some way, shape, or form that value is created. So let's not talk about the product or its consumption. Let's talk about what it's supposed to do on the other side. And again, that's meaningless if for the person you're talking to, it's not personally relevant to what's important to them. Sure. And so I think that the thread of that question is so multidimensional, and as a leader, it's something we all should know.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you. I like that. So, Jeremy, we have a segment on here that it's a fun segment. You're gonna like it. It's called "Would You Rather."
Okay.
So
I hope you play it differently than my friends, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
it's gonna get interesting. I'm telling you.
All right, so here we go. So, would you rather meet your great grandparents or your great grandchildren?
That's a really good question. I think I would want to go, selfishly with meeting my great grandparents. And let me tell you why. Because it would be really interesting. Although going downstream and meeting my great grandkids would help me see how I did, right? what carried through. I think for me to be able to carry something better through, I think going back and learning from my great grandparents would give me something that I would be better able to pass on, to make my great grandkids and put them in a better position. And, my kids are really young and I'm too damn old to have kids this young. The likelihood of me seeing great grandkids is 0. So absolute 0. Unless they figure out how to put a brain in a robot, I'm screwed in that regard.
Yeah, you might be one of those that. Yeah, Jeremy is 110 now.
Yeah, even if I make it there, I don't know if I'll see great grandkids still. I'm sad about it.
What is a great grandchild?
Yeah, exactly.
So would you rather know all the world's languages or speak with animals?
Well, you know what? I'd rather be able to speak with animals, and let me tell you why. Because at our house we have 4 dogs, a cat, 3 fish, and a turtle that I swear I think is dead, but I'm not positive. Right. So outside of being able to speak to the turtle and see if the damn thing's alive, is I would really like to have a serious conversation with the small farm that is destroying my house to get control. Right. So I'm going to go animals on that one.
Okay. All right. Would you rather go to dinner alone or go to a concert alone?
What kind of concert are we talking about here? Because if it's Smokey Robinson, I'll go to the concert because I don't care if anyone's around me. I like Smokey Robinson. But if it's a good place for nachos, then I may lean on the dinner. But for sake of argument, I'll go concert. I'll go concert because. Okay.
All right. Oh, that's right. Bill told me that Bill Valenzuela said, "Hey, ask Jeremy if he had enough." He said y'all ate at Taco Cabana. I think he said
Taco Cabana. That's like the best nachos in the world, man. I mean, Bill did me a solid weaving over 3 lanes of traffic to get us to Taco Cabana. That's all I want to do. It's like you come back to Texas, that's what you got to have.
All right. I've never eaten there, by the way.
Dude, you got to step up, man. You got to step up. Yeah. Awesome.
I'll have to check it out. So, would you rather be an adult your whole life or be a kid your whole life?
Well, some would argue that I never stopped being a kid, so I'm going to just go ahead and stick with being a kid my whole life because I think I'm living that right now, and and I like it. So we'll just kind of stick with that.
Yeah, nobody in your family sent me that question and said asking that. Okay.
Yeah, but they make no qualms about telling me. So.
So 2 more. Would you rather be best friends forever with your favorite celebrity, or date your celebrity crush for 2 years?
I don't even have a celebrity crush. Actually, Kelly Rowland is. I'm gonna go with Kelly Rowland on that. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to go that way. Poor Kelly. That'd be bad for her, but you set the rules of the game. So
yeah. Last one that I asked everyone: would you rather have $1 million in Amazon gift cards or $100,000 in real money?
I go go to the Amazon gift cards, man. I'm an economist. I know value, right? So you gotta tell me if anyone's asking for the real cash. 'Cause I gotta help them out a bit here.
Yeah. Hey, I see the Amazon gift cards myself.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for playing that version of Would You Rather.
Not a problem, man.
So, Jeremy, you are one of these leaders that believed in personal growth and development.
Yeah.
And one of the books that you gave the sales leaders was this book right here, audience, and it's called 100 Ways to Motivate Others, right? So there's a lot of different leadership books out there, a lot of different books, but why did you select this book?
Actually, when I first selected it for myself, I was picking it for the wrong reasons. I was myself, as a young manager. When I first started young manager, I was looking for this, this what you call historically gimmicky transactional way to motivate people, right? I'm going to rah-rah the team. This is what it's going to teach me. And when I read it, it was just so eye-opening. Because it really does open up the perspective of what real motivation is, at least what sustainable motivation is. Mm-hmm. Not the fake rah-rah, but just intrinsically what goes on in people from a psychological perspective, from an emotional perspective, and how that manifests itself into their behavior. And why that's so important is because, and even the book talks about this a little bit, you're never helping anybody if you allow them to live in a world where they feel victimized, right? Where they feel victimized and out of control, or in a world where they don't get in touch with their own strengths, their own power to move and to control and to perform and to achieve whatever it is that they want. And I found that book in and of itself, with these kind of 100 slices of wisdom, and that's the way I would look at it. Just shape as a leader the perspective of how do you help somebody, right? That book, in a weird sort of way, because I've known about servant leaderships and since 1992, studying it in college. That book brought me back to servant leadership, because what it really talks to is how do you really help people be their best, yes, right? Versus how do you be your best and how do you make them feel good? That book's not about making people feel good through what you tell them. It's about making people feel good from what they become. And that, I think, is powerful.
Yeah. And folks, transformation is what Jeremy is talking about right here. And he said, hey, he's not talking about the rah-rah. Well, he started off that way, but he transformed to, hey, it's about helping people transform. Transformational leaders help people have aha moments and help people figure out, I need to do this so that I can change. And that book, I'm going to put it back up here again, 100 Ways to Motivate Others. There's also a companion to this, is 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself. It kind of goes into the law of contribution that I said is our guiding principle. You can't give what you don't have. So learn how to motivate yourself, and then you'll learn how to transform other people. So Jeremy, mentorship is always important in someone's career. Do you have a mentor? And if yes, what impact has that mentor made? Or what did they make? What impact they made in your career?
Yeah, so I do. I have a few mentors that I kind of lean on, from a growth perspective. And let me take a step back, because and it's a perspective. It's not gospel. So this is just a perspective on it. I, early on in my career, was assigned mentors all over the shop, and I got not much from it. Largely because in the professional setting, mentor has become synonymous with the person who helps me get promoted, the person who helps me get the next job, the person who helps me navigate, and that's great, because, I wanted that, other people want that. And so when we look at mentors, sometimes we look at who can open the door for me to move on, and that's fine. My mentors today, maybe it's because I'm too damn old, right, are not that. Right, I'm not leaning on them to find me the next job or to tell me. I'm leaning on them to help me build my wisdom, right? And we all know the difference, right? knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing it doesn't go in a fruit salad, right? And I have had a ton of experiences and challenges and problems and successes and in business and in personal life. And I lean on my mentors, and I have for some time, not to get me promoted, but to help me convert what it is that I'm doing into wisdom that helps shape who I am and helps me make sense of the experiences that I've gotten. So mentors are really important. And if your main objective is to rocket through your career, particularly from my experience in the company I came from, who was maybe even more important than what you could do or what kind of person you were, because that was shaped by the mentor's branding of you, right? So that was important, and I don't want to belittle it. But for me, I think what's a much richer path is look for people from a mentoring perspective who can help you become wiser, who can help you on your journey become a better, more powerful, more aligned, more purposeful person. And that's what my mentors are doing for me. I'll shout out one of them because he's meant so much to me, as a guy named Phil Sterling, who's the CEO of the Summit Group. And just that guy understands, as we're talking together, he's balancing everything he says to me, both my spiritual being, my emotional being, my professional being, my intellectual being. He's balancing it all in terms of using every event, everything we're talking about, moving the needle for those things. And I'm very thankful for that. And I think that's, I pray everybody can have that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I always like to help have a guest help our audience understand, navigating career, what things they should think about in their career. And I like that you said, hey, some people are going to have a mentor to help them, jet set through their career. But as you get older and wiser, you start thinking about who can help me become, gain some more wisdom. And I like that. So thanks for pointing that out. So, when as you're talking about careers, people go through their career and they land a new job, the job that they always wanted. Right.
Yeah.
What are some things from your perspective as a former executive leader that you would tell this person to do to now stay there? They've landed a job, but what they did to land a job is not going to keep them there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, first thing is don't worry about the next job. Right. So many people I've come across, and some of the characters, man. People get in a job and they already start looking for what's next beyond that. It's like, you gotta first, calibrate yourself about starting with saying thank you, whether you believe in God or not. Thank somebody that you get this opportunity to not only you, and you see it as an opportunity that you're going to use to become a better human being. And you have to calibrate yourself that way. I think. So that you prime yourself to say, okay, I'm going to do this, right? Yeah. I will tell you from direct experience there, I've only missed that step once. It was my last job. I missed it. And that started me off all on the wrong foot, for being able to stop and just be thankful for the opportunity, even if it doesn't feel like one, right? to just be thankful for the opportunity. And be able to approach it from, an attitude of gratitude. I wish I had done that. That was a mistake, and I should have. So you start there. The second thing that I would say is you've got to kind of eliminate any preconceptions that you're bringing into it. 9 times out of 10, when you're coming into that job, somebody's telling you that those people are good or those people are bad. Those people, did perform really well, or they're whatever it might be. And that's generally without context for why any of that stuff occurred. People actually may not be good, and their performance was just based off of, some sort of, market wind, right? Which I've seen. They may not be bad because the actual market headwind was so heavy, right? The fact they did really well for kind of how they delivered. And I've seen senior executives who had commentary of the jobs I was stepping into be wildly ass wrong, right? So you gotta just also calibrate to the fact that you're going to go find for yourself. The best thing you can do then is going, in my opinion, is going and spending time with the individuals in that organization before you take action one, right? Unless there's a crisis, unless you have to deploy a lifeboat or something like that, before you take action one of trying to, as much as you can, understand what's important to them and what's their version of the truth that they're living, right? Because of what context that they see. So that then you kind of understand where your starting point is. From there, I encourage people to visualize either wild success or abnormal results. You've gone through and you kind of baseline where you think it is, right, where the business is. Now envision something that's exceptional beyond anything that the business could ever conceive it could go do, and then start trying to reconcile, knowing where they are and why, to how you're going to make that journey to this wild success. And I think as long as you if you keep the tenets together of consistently coming back to where people are and meeting them where they are, while keeping your head and your mind focused on what it can be, if you're consistently doing that, then a lot of permutations and challenges happen in between, but you're tethering between both worlds and you're keeping them tied together. Some days you're going to move closer, some days you're going to move further apart, but at least you keep them together. Again, like I said, where I've done that, that's resulted in great success. It's not that we haven't had success where it hasn't been done, but I tell you, there's a whole lot more pain when you lose touch with where people are,
sure,
where you can't approach it with gratitude, where you can't relate to where it is. Culturally, it's a difficult thing to work through, because you may live in the wild success expectations of what you're trying to do, but you've lost your people along the way. So you got to kind of keep that tether.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks very much. I like that. So, on a couple more questions here. So, you've had a lot of success in your career, done a lot of things, but also in our careers, we have times where we fail at something. Maybe we thought this was going to work out great, and it just didn't work out the way. I know that we put together some sales plans that we thought, wow, this is going to be a really good plan, and then all of a sudden, the customers don't execute my plan.
Yeah.
So,
hate them. Being a business leader is easy if it wasn't for the people and the customers and the product. If those three things would just do what they're supposed to do, then everybody'd be all right.
Yeah. So we've all also had failure. So how do you give us an example of a failure and how you overcome that failure so that you can keep going and to the next thing?
I failed at so many thousands of things. It's hard to pick an example and say, there's this or there's that. I think the main thing is it's never fatal, right? Very rarely is anything fatal. And even if it's fatal in one domain, it's not fatal for your life, right? Sure. If nothing else, I tell people is as you make mistakes or you take risks, understand that there's nothing that is fatal or permanent, right? That you can't work your way through. And I think that's a mindset to take. And when you lose that mindset, right? If you lose that mindset, then you're going to find you're going to lose yourself, right? Particularly if you work in a high pressure business, you're going to end up in a high pressure or high political business. You're going to end up in a bad spot. So you just have to feel comfortable that nothing's fatal for your life, right? And that you just have to work on doing the right thing. So when you make mistakes, you can just tell yourself that it's not fatal. Now, again, what do we do next? Because all we can control is not what happened. Well, we control what we do from here, and keep our mindset on playing the next play, hitting the next shot, taking the next step. And if that ends up being, hey, you know what, you lost your job, or you lost a promotion opportunity, that might be it. Use it for what you're going to move into next. I mean, you can. There's the history is full of people who lost jobs, and I don't know how many jobs Steve Jobs lost. He lost the CEO job at Apple, right? He became resurrected, came back and got it, man. So these are things that happen. That when you have failure, you just got to remind yourself.
Sure.
I wish in my time, if I were to go back and say, like going back to say my last job of not being thankful, right? That put me on an off balance world where I started to think things were fatal. And that's a bad way to walk the earth.
Sure.
Because that's fear, and there are two very bad mentalities to have in your life, particularly as a leader: fear and obligation. If you're living in fear and obligation, man, you're not living. And that's I would say is something to keep in mind.
Yes, absolutely. I like that, fear and obligation. So this question may be a little bit difficult to answer. If you had to pick two things that someone could do in their career in order to move to the executive level, what would those two things be? Now, I know there's a lot of things that people have to do, right? Because if not, everybody would be at executive level because they do those two things. But if there are two things that you had to pick, what would you advise someone on?
So I'm gonna tell you one that I really don't believe in, but it happens to be the way of the world, and then I'll give you two that I think are important. Okay. Right? Unfortunately, still in a lot of companies, the political dynamics of it matter, right? It's who you know, it's the brand you wrap around yourself. And I don't want to belittle, I don't belittle that because that's not negative. I don't mean it poisonous. I just wish it wasn't the case, but it is. Sure. It's not, and so you have to be mindful about your network, if you want to get at executive level, and you have to be mindful about how that network and the people who make those decisions evaluate success. Again, I'm not trying to paint that as evil, right? But that's that you have a brand and you have to sell yourself through. And it would be irresponsible to tell you the world works differently because of my experience, maybe limited. It doesn't. It works that way, right? The best guy doesn't always, the best woman or man doesn't always get the job. Best woman or man doesn't always get put on the pedestal and even get the rewards, right? You're given balance. So you have to work that network. On the flip side, if I was to say that wasn't there, I would say you kind of the first element where you can sharpen is problem solving, right? Is understanding and being able to work against a problem. And I'm going to put opportunity in that same zone, right? Because those become the sources of change in organizations and markets is when problems and opportunities you come to bear. And so as a leader, since change and performance are mandatory, being able to solve problems and think through them and mobilize the organization to get at them is key. And you can sharpen your problem solving skills and for sure learn how to use the strengths of others and deploy the strengths of others against that. The second one is a little bit touchy-feely, but it's to program yourself to think about value and outcomes differently than we do right now. If you really want to go far, I think in the future, and you're seeing this in modern leadership and modern management change, but so much of what companies have historically done is focused on their product or their service, which we were talking about earlier. And I think you can go far with that and being a master technically for what it is you're doing, but the data overwhelmingly shows when you get to the top of the organization, your technical competency has to be much less, right? And it's these other things like problem solving that start to take over. So I just share that with you to say if you can really be focusing on the value that gets created, again, if we have an apple, it's not. The apple is not the value. It's that whatever, however I perceive what the apple does for me, that's the value. If you can calibrate yourself to constantly be looking at that, then you're going to be in a better position, not only to lead the business in the right direction, but also to work with people, right? Because then you can look at the input of work, of their bonus, of their salary, of their effort, all as an input to some bigger end that they have on a personal scale.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely love that. So he said, folks, the political dynamics, it is what it is. That's just a part of the world. And, it's probably never going to go away as long as there's human beings and businesses. That's just going to happen. That's going to be there. But the things that you have some control over and the handle is your problem solving skills. And then the second one is understand and embrace value and outcomes, right? Sometimes that's a soft skill type thing, but it goes into personal development and growth, and you then taking control of that to help you navigate through your career. My two last questions. Nobody's at your house. It's just you and your four walls.
Yeah.
What dessert are you going to eat?
What's what?
What dessert are you going to eat?
I got a whole pint of Cold Stone ice cream that's called Founder's Favorite, which is it's like a cake batter ice cream with brownie, pecans, and caramel, and it is awesome. So after this call, that's what I'm having.
You're gonna have that good dessert. All right, I like that. Last question for you is: if there was a book written about you, Jeremy,
yeah,
what would the title be, and what would the summary say in the back of the book?
I would hope the title would be "Sexiest Man Living at 6'3", because that's the only time I'm going to be the sexiest man because I'm the only one here. So, but if that could be the title, that's what I'd like it to be. It's a tough question. What I would say is the title would be, for me, would be nearsighted and foresight. Okay, nearsighted and foresight. Why I say that, again, and I'm being transparent as a human being, is why I call it nearsighted is because the closer you get to me is the only way you can see who I really am. Mm-hmm. I've been, for whatever reason, as I've gone throughout my life, I've always experienced that the people who are far away from me, who didn't know me, who maybe never met me, who maybe never saw me, who maybe never heard me speak, had these perceptions of who I was that are nowhere close to who I am as a human being, how I go about my day, and whatever that might be. And there's a variety of reasons why that's the case. And I share that, simply because as I've gone through, is trying to make as many individual connections as I can is really important, because there's you got to build trust, and really got to get close to me to understand who I am, right, and value what that is. From a foresight perspective, is because unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't see dead people, but unfortunately, to a degree, I'm pretty good at the future, right, and seeing kind of how things play out, even seeing bad things coming, right, and that's a gift from one lens, because who wouldn't want to know kind of how things are going to play out, and it's great to be in the know there, right? The problem is that if you're the only person who can see it, then you're kind of on an island by yourself, and it can be very lonely as you're trying to explain to people kind of how the future bends and what the permutations will be and what do you have to prepare for. It's like trying to get people to prepare for an earthquake that's coming, right? That when they haven't had an earthquake in 1,000 years, right. So you can sound like Chicken Little, right? Right. So it's a gift and a curse all at the same time, and that's why I would say, kind of, there's a personal element of being close to me, and there's this ability to see things, way in advance, and almost, and I've spent a lot of my life being treated like the mad professor, right? Of like, what's this guy thinking? What's he doing? Whatever, and even stuff that it'll come true, and I have a track record of it, but it's a difficult thing. So what I hope we get into reading the back sleeve of the book is people can appreciate that as a loving, kind human being who really cared about people and really tried to sacrifice to get there, and in a way was getting people ready for a future that they didn't even know that they were going to enter into. Right. But I'm confident and even today I get calls from people who, when something happened, said, "Hey, you told me this was going to happen, and I was prepared for it. It didn't surprise me, and I was in a position to make it happen." And I hope that's how it reads on the back sleeve of the book.
Awesome. I like that. I wish you would have called me in December 2019 to tell me that pandemic was coming.
Yeah. So I want you to listen to me because I knew. I had already said.
Jeremy, the hour has passed by really, really fast. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully you had a good time as well being here. I know that our audience enjoyed the feedback that you were able to provide.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, folks, tomorrow night we will have another show of Talk Leadership with Cedric at 5:30 Central Time. So make sure you tune in. And remember, as I always tell you, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Don't be on the menu. Thank you and good night.